very much. We'll now move to the first of two zoning bylaw amendments sponsored by the Planning Board. Article 20, moved and seconded by the Planning Board that the town vote to approve Article 20 as printed in the warrant, and this pertains to open space development. The Planning Board supports Article 20. I have their report. They held a public hearing on Thursday, March 28th, and they voted 5-0 to recommend Article 20, open space development, as printed in the warrant. You'll note that the Board of Selectmen does not support Article 20, and you see the vote cast by the Board of Selectmen. I would recognize the Planning Board to introduce the article.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Mark Monari, and I'm Chairman of the Planning Board. And I'd like to talk briefly about our open space bylaw. It's been in effect for almost 20 years, and it's been the most successful bylaw that I think the town has ever had. We've had 10 developers come through the bylaw. If some of you will recognize them, we had Cobb Meadows. Cobb Meadows had 99 acres. They built 18 houses on it. The rest of the land was 40 acres were left in open space. We had a well site out of that. There's been walking trails that connect Cobb Meadows to the Yap property, which connects to the Frost Wickham property, which connects to the lake property. So it was integral in our acquiring this land for the trail systems there. Those 40 acres cost the town of Littleton absolutely nothing. All in total, since we've done the open space bylaw, we've had over 225 acres of open space land donated to conservation, park and rec. We've gotten 2 well sites out of it, and we've built 136 units on roughly 350 acres of land. The reason that we're here before you now is that was the old days. That was 20 years ago, when the planning board and the developers would come in and we'd come up with a solution to the land that made sense for the developer, and it also worked out well for the town. The town has, as I've said, gotten over 225 acres of open space land out of these 10 deals that we've done so far. A couple of years ago, the playing field changed a little bit. The planning board used to have pretty much a gentleman's agreement when the developer came in. We would ask them how many lots they could get. They would give us their best case scenario, and we always had the safety net of septic. Littleton doesn't have a town sewer system. We didn't have municipal systems at the time. We always knew that if a developer said there was going to be 15 lots in this piece of land, there was going to be 15 lots, because they had to perk them and make sure that a septic system would fit on it. Well, now we don't have that. We've seen that there's the chance of there's the chance of common systems and municipal systems that the state will regulate, and we don't have the ability to ask the developer to show us the viability of these lots. The developers will come in now, give us a piece of paper like you see up there on the screen, and cut it into blocks and say, this is 100 acres, I take 20% out because the bylaw says that you have to take 20% out for wetlands and ledge and things like that. So I can put 80 lots in those 80 acres, and that's it. We don't have any way to look at what actually is on the ground anymore. The developer doesn't have to. Our bylaw, even though it is a special permit, didn't have in there that we had the right to ask to see septic, to see any kind of calculations to show that the lot would actually stand on its own. It was always, in the old days, it was always understood because if you build a house, you have to have a septic system. Now with the shared systems and the state regulated systems, we don't have that luxury. All we're trying to do is level the playing field. The open space bylaw has been great for the town of Littleton. As I said, we've gotten 225 acres of land, a couple of well sites. recreation facility, recreational fields out of it and everything else. We just want to be able to still have the right to take a look at what the land looks like. As it is now, all we're going to see are flat little plans and not be able to deal with the topography of the land, whether there's ledge there, whether there's water there, any of those. We're just going to look at a flat plan and a planning board meeting and be done with it. We want to be able to keep the playing field like it's been for the past 20 years. I hope you will support this article. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, I do have the results of the voting under Article 15. In the meantime, if you wish to speak to Article 20, if you could make your way to the center microphone, that would be appreciated. There were 270 votes cast. Two-thirds of that total would be 180 votes necessary for passage. There were 258 yes votes and 12 no votes. So, obviously, Article 15 passes by the necessary two-thirds margin, and I declare it a vote. Thank you very much. And now we'll continue with the debate with respect to Article 20. Yes, sir, Mr. Yap.
My name is Peter Yap. I'm a 7-year member of the Littleton Board of Health. As you know, the selectmen voted against supporting this plan, but what you probably didn't know was the Board of Health 5-0 voted against this. Some of the reasoning for this was not, as Mr. Montanari pointed out, about the open space concept. That's a great concept. We did it under earlier programs. The change here is now the septic. And I'm going to go into that, what requirement there is to actually prove a lot is buildable. But the reason, one of the main reasons that we were concerned about this was normally any septic testing or any of that is Title V. It comes under the Board of Health's jurisdiction. Now what's being asked is the planning board wants you to allow them to require septic testing, which has always been under the Board of Health. And it's very poorly written, and I'm going to go into that too, about where the problems lie in this particular proposed change. Now, essentially, when this first came up, we knew nothing about it. The chairman of the planning board had gone to the selectmen and asked them to put it on the warrant. No one came to the Board of Health and said, Board of Health, this is what we want to do. What is your thoughts on it? It wasn't until later on, after the vote, that someone essentially came in. This was really a bad move not to include the particular body that's in charge of that testing. Now, under this here, as I pointed out before, the requirement to do testing by the planning board. Now, we had a couple of our members went down to the hearing and told them, look, it's our budget. Essentially what they're doing is they're going, we want the Board of Health to do the perk testing and pick up the cost. They don't have anything in their budget for doing perk testing. And I'm going to talk a little bit because that's about perk testing, because it's, you folks, I know a lot of you know it, but there's some that don't, so I want you to be able to make an adequate choice. This is a very big issue. Essentially, like I said, you've got one board telling another board that they're going to take your rules for whatever they want, and they are going to make you pay for it. So essentially what I'd like to give you is a little 101 on perk testing and making land, whether it's buildable. Generally, if you've got a lot and you wanted to have it, see if it's buildable, you hire an engineering company. The engineering company goes out, gets all the permits, hires the people that have backhoes. They go out and do numerous tests, deep hole, and perk tests to determine the soil conditions. They also, in most cases, have to survey it. They would survey the lot. And when they finally get everything done, it all has to be witnessed by the Board of Health's agent, which is Jim Goretti at the Neshoba Board of Health. That's how the process works. Once they get that information, they go back to the engineering office. Using Title V, they do all the setbacks and everything and determine whether or not that lot is suitable. Can you imagine now, say a 400-acre piece, and going in there and doing that on every single lot? Now, this is the open space concept. I love the open space concept. It's real good. We have no problem with that. The problem is the septic testing. They do it all over this 400 acres for the supposed 40 houses. When they get done with that, the way we read it, now, once they're granted to do an open space thing based on whatever septic testing, they then have to go and do the same thing for where the houses are actually going to be clustered. It's doing everything twice. And then on top of it, now, privately owned septic systems, sewage treatment plants, similar to Westford. Westford has 8 treatment plants that are non-municipal, basically for residential. So if you did that too, and the planning board originally wanted us to require at the Omni site to make sure that every one of those clusters houses also had a site plan for a septic system. And we said, no, that's crazy. They're going into a thing, you're never going to go back to it. But essentially what you could have under this particular article is you have testing for all over the place on all these, say, 40 lots. Then you might go back down into the cluster, when you put it in the cluster, have requirement for septic systems in there, and then they go to the sewage treatment plant. So all that money is thrown out the window. Who in their right mind and a developer is going to do that for open space? Once you've got everything all tested and you've got it surveyed and everything, they'll just do a regular subdivision. So I'm asking the voters not to approve this article. There's a lot of things in there. There's a lot of things that don't even mention the Littleton Board of Health, Littleton Board of Health's variances that we also sign off and stuff. They left us right out of this. All it says, it's got to meet Title V requirements. Who is going to do the testing? Who's going to determine? Do you go to the planning board to get a variance? There's a whole bunch of this is poorly written, and I can tell you that no town around here has this type of plan. So consequently, I would ask everybody to think about it and don't vote for it. Let them go back. It's worked very good, as Mr. Montanari pointed out, it worked good for 20 years. It's still working good in other towns. So why are we jumping into something that's so poorly written and it doesn't give you anything? Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Jared Opler, New State Road. I mean, the planning board's heart is in the right place. The idea is try to limit sprawl. The problem is packaged treatment plants are a game changer. Whereas in the past, you'd have to get lots to perk. That limited the number of lots you could get. Now you don't. You need a small corner of the property to perk, and you can literally carve it up into the squares like Mr. Montanari said. By putting this additional requirement of requiring every lot in the density plan to perk, You're telling the developer, you want to go open space, you're liable to get fewer lots. Why would they want to do that? I think this needs to be revised, looked at again, so you have a level playing field where the developer has to prove how many houses can be supported based on what you could build with a packaged plant, but this idea of putting a 4-bedroom perk test requirement on an open space development that's not there for conventional subdivision is going to be a tremendous disadvantage to developers, and you'll never see another open space development again.
Thank you. Mr. Montanari.
I just want to correct a few little misnomers that the Board of Health gave. First of all, the planning board is not going to take over the Board of Health. The Board of Health has always done the perk test, and for as long as I've been on the board, we've always deferred everything to the Board of Health. We've done, let me go back to our 20 years. We've done 136 houses on open space. We got 225 acres of open space that didn't cost us $417,000. We've got it for nothing. We have Gray Farm. We have all these different pieces of farmland that we preserve. We did 136 houses and we've never perked one. Not one of them has been perked. All we're trying to tell you is that in the future, if a developer comes in with a piece of land that's marginal, and that's what we're seeing now, marginal land, we want the right to ask them. We're not going to make them perk every lot. We're not going to make them perk half the lots. It's just that if there's something that's bad and it's got ledge in it. Mr. Yap brought up Omni. This is in direct response to what happened with us at Omni. We had a 22-acre subdivision with 22 lots. 14 acres of it was open space that the town couldn't do anything with. It was all salamanders. We saw no perks. We had to go by the developer's word because everything was going into a sewage treatment plant. We couldn't tell you if there were 20 lots up there. We couldn't tell you if 4 of them were up there. That's the problem we're running into, and all we're trying to do is protect the town from having more houses put on a parcel than it can rightfully hold on its own. We're just trying to level the playing field. We're not going to make developers build every single lot. We're not going to make them perk every single lot. We're not taking over the town of Littleton so the Board of Health won't be able to do anything. This is still going to be the Board of Health's bailiwick. We just want to have the opportunity, if it arises, that the planning board can ask for a perk test. The old days it used to say in our bylaw that you could put an open space development in as long as it was no less detrimental. Those words had to come out because they wouldn't, town council told us they wouldn't stand up in court, and we had to ask for perk tests, because special permit, we have to ask for it, and that's all we're trying to do. If the property is marginal, and if the development is questionable as to the total number of lots you could get in there, from an open space and a conventional plan, we want to be able to get count. That's all we're trying to do. Thank you.
That's good.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Chris Simone, Story Road. I'm just glad I followed Mark and not Jerry. The height's right for me here on the microphone. It seems to me that that a yes vote is important here. You know, we're at a point in town where there's a lot of development. We're in a phase of significant scale. We've got projects that have been approved and underway, such as the Point. Others approved yet to begin construction, like the 40B development, which will unfortunately have significant negative consequence on taxpayers and students in the town. We've got numerous other projects in various stages of approval. And while some of that development certainly bears progress and is good for the town, not all of it does. And from my standpoint, you know, any provision like this and a vote of no is certainly a pro-development vote. We can do better. We've really reached a point where if we're going to have a meaningful equation and decision process around open space, what does that mean? What is the give back? A vote of yes simply levels the playing field, as Mr. Montanari suggested, so that the town gets a reasonable equation and by a reasonable process, we arrive at a fair disposition and ultimately preserve the open space that we have. And, you know, as far as value, we forget, though, many town meetings that have come before us made courageous decisions to strike that balance between progress and development and preservation, and we all benefit from that balance today in our property values and the fact that Littleton has become a premier desirable town to live in. That open space is an important part of it. Voting no makes it easier. It's a pro-development decision. It makes it easier for developers to manipulate some of those rules which have protected the town, which serves all of us very, very well. And as far as territorial decisions about jurisdiction between one board and another, while the Board of Health does very, very important work and serves the town well, this is not about that. This is about balance and the benefit to all of us as a result of it, and I urge and ask the voters to vote yes.
Okay. Yes, sir, Gino.
Thank you. What language do you want me to speak? Do you want me to be a referee? Because I think next time we should have a ring here. Boxing ring, you know what I mean? Everyone that spoke is sort of like a family to me, you know what I mean?
Okay, just stop you.
All right.
I know. Most of us know you, but please identify yourself.
I like to say I concur with Peter Yap. I'm the chairman of the Board of Health. And I don't tell any other body of, like a board of selectmen or the planning board, how to deal with the problem. We are the Board of Health, and we don't go anybody else, and we don't tell anybody else what to do. Okay, so in other words is, I concur with Peter Yap. The only thing he forgot to say is, you discourage, okay, people that are willing to build here in Littleton, and they are willing to give you open space. That's what you're doing. If you approve this particular article, you will discourage people coming to Littleton. And I love Littleton like everybody else here does. Okay, thank you so much. I will not make you a lecture. I will not give you a lecture like some of these people do. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Board of Selectmen?
Yeah, Jim Carr, Board of Selectmen. The Board of Selectmen, the majority voted against this article, and the insight behind it is, as Mr. Montanari stated, it's been working, we've got a lot of open space. The open space special permit for these types of development is a special permit, just that. The planning board always has the ability to say no to that. So they do have the authority to shut down the open space development right now, currently, because it's a special permit. So a vote for this is detrimental to the open space that everybody in here wants, because we're putting more restrictions on an open space cluster development. A conventional is sprawl. Open space is a cluster development. Hence, we get the open space and they have more buildings. But in trade-off, we get the open space. So, as Mr. Montanari said, the open space plan has worked, and it continues to work. If we put more restrictions on these open space options, special permits, who's going to come forward? I believe it was Mr. Yap that came out and said, the more restrictions we put on, if I can build 40 houses, why would I build 41 houses and give up some land if I have to perk every lot? I got to perk every lot if I'm going to build 40 houses. Why do it twice? Just need to understand, open space is, you have two options in subdivision, conventional and open space. Open space is just that. We want the open space. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am?
Charlotte Russell, Foster Street. I hear what Mr. Montanari says about the planning board not requiring the developer to test every lot. But the way this is written with the musts and shalls, it looks to me that they're almost required to test every lot. Could I hear what town council has to say regarding that?
Town council?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Tom Harrington, Town Council. Through you, Mr. Moderator, to the previous speaker. You are correct. The way this is written, it's must and shall. So the developer or the applicant is required to do exactly what it says, which is perk every lot. However, the planning board always has the right to waive those requirements as the applicant goes through the process.
Thank you. Mr. Castaneri, would you like to speak?
Thank you. Peter Castaneri, Loxley Road. I'm a member of the Board of Health. I just don't understand why we have a separate board at this point utilizing what has been total authority of the Board of Health. They're going to need the use of our agent, as Mr. Yap indicated, part of our budget. Never the planning board's budget to do perk tests. Additionally, the Board of Health has separate regulations of their own. Title V are really the minimum standards, and boards of health are allowed to adopt regulations that are a bit more strict but are reasonable and are part of the process of giving a construction works disposal permit. I just don't understand at all why this authority or how this authority can be transferred. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. Last two speakers. Yes, sir.
Jerry Portante, Planning Board. So just so everybody understands, at least from my perspective, and we debated this at the Planning Board, what the value of this change to the open space bylaw was. It's not to impose Title V requirements for every lot. It's simply a way to condition or help us control the number of lots that we allow in an open space plan. And I just also want to correct a couple of things that have been said. The planning board has discretion as to whether or not an open space or a conventional plan is used, not the developer. Anything over 10 acres, we have discretion as to what plan we will accept. If a developer comes in and decides they want to go for a conventional plan and it's over 10 acres, we can say no. They have to file an open space. So they don't have that discretion. So if you take a flat piece of paper and you subdivide that out and you draw 80 lots, it doesn't mean they're going to get 80 lots. We have that discretion. The open space experience we had with the Omni property was they were able to get 22 lots in without considering septic in their formula to determine what's otherwise an unbuildable lot. That's my understanding of it. All we're trying to do is provide a mechanism to address that situation. It's a special permit, we have discretion, we can decide what we're going to do, what we're not going to do. It's not a punitive tool, it doesn't mean they have to perk every lot. So if you, I guess what this really comes down to for me is if you're in favor of developers maximizing lots on either an open space or a conventional, then you don't want this amendment to the bylaw. If you are not in favor of that and you want to give the planning board discretion to control how many lots ultimately end up in a special permit, then you're for this amendment. I would also point out if this amendment doesn't work out, this is what, from the Natick? This comes from the town of Natick that has sewer. They use this to control development in their town, even though they already have sewer. So it really comes down to what side of the fence you're on in regards to development. If it doesn't work, we can always amend the bylaw later and put a new bylaw in place. It doesn't have to exist forever. We've never tested it in the town of Littleton. We vote for it, we put it in, we see how it goes. Keep in mind there are a lot of other marginal properties, particularly some very big ones right now that are open, or probably will be coming in front of us pretty soon. If you want to see no control by the planning board and how many lots get put out there, then really you should vote against this. This just gives us a mechanism for control, but it's not absolute control. We're not stepping on the Board of Health's turf because we're not saying that even though a lot doesn't perk, if they put a shared septic system in, they can still build on a non-perkable lot if they're using shared septic. That's all I got. Thanks.
All right. Thank you. Mr. Montanari, you'll have the final word.
Thank you. I just want to I just want to make sure that everyone understands. Even though it's a special permit, we've always had the developers before us, and the reason it's always worked is because Open space is advantageous for a developer because it reduces the amount of cost that he has to do to put the road in. An open space is usually about a third of what a conventional subdivision. That's a big number when you're building a 10-acre subdivision or a 15-acre, you have 10 to 12 houses, and you have to spread the road cost to that. That's why we've had so many developers come before us. And we've always worked with them because they've always had to put a septic system in. We're not trying to take the septic away from the Board of Health. We're hoping we never have to ask the developer to perk a lot. We're hoping the developers are going to play it straight with us like they have for 20 years and show us a subdivision that makes sense, that doesn't totally maximize every square inch of land out there and trying to put a size 12 foot into a size 10 shoe. That's what's been happening lately. We just want a level playing field because we're not going to be able to look at individual septic systems now. We want a number that makes sense to the piece of land that's before us. Thank you.
Thank you. Is this additional information, something new?
Yes, one last comment. If you really want to level the playing field, the right metric is show me how much wastewater you can legally dispose of on the lot, on the site. Not lot by lot, not requiring, a perk on every lot as this thing says, but look at it as a total. How many gallons of wastewater can you dispose of? Divide that by X, that's how many lots you get. The idea is right, I think it needs some fine tuning.
And this is bringing new information forth. Don McIver, Planning Board, formerly Board of Health. There are two things that caused this to change. One, the Board of Health changed the regulations about septic systems and allowed shared systems instead of septic. The second thing is Omni at 15 Great Road. They threatened to sue us. They claimed they could win in court if they sued us. This is what caused this. This isn't just because we're frivolous or we're bored. They actually threatened to sue us, and they abused the special permit. We could not really stop it very well. If you remember correctly, there were a lot of arrangements with the neighbors about which direction to go. And what had happened is that we had spending a lot of time on 15 Great Road, we had very little time left. So what was left was our administrator and town council went out to look for a solution. The solution they came back with was this, and Jerry was almost right, it wasn't Natick, it was in Framingham. In Framingham, they do this, they do check the soils to find out how many houses are buildable, whether it's a buildable lot or not. It's too bad we couldn't have done that at 15 Great Road because that would have changed things quite a bit. And it isn't just that Framingham had used it. Framingham got taken to court, and town of Framingham won. This is court-tested language. This isn't taking anything away from the Board of Health. When the Board of Health was at our hearing and said, this is their territory, we agreed. I went to the very next Board of Health meeting, and everyone's apologized. I've suggested wording that would be their agent. They can charge fees for doing extra tests. What it really comes down to, for any large development, anything over 10 acres, and I guess it was mentioned 400 acres, if you want to protect it, it's important to vote this in tonight. I'm more than willing to spend the summer working with people if you want to fine-tune it for November, but we're at risk of getting sued. And I remember correctly, the selectmen did not want to go in that direction, if I remember correctly. I frankly would have preferred to fight 15 Great Road and Omni. But this isn't frivolous, this is necessary, this was brought about by town council and administrator, and this is court tested. This we need tonight. Now, let's work during the summer to improve it. Thank you.
All right, I think we've heard both sides of the issue, and I think we're ready to take a vote. Please remember, this is a zoning bylaw amendment. It requires a 2/3 majority vote. So based on the discussion, I think we're going to do a hand count. If I could get 3 or 4 volunteers to come forward to serve as tellers, that would greatly facilitate the vote. So if I could get a few people to help me out with that. Thank you, Terry. Thank you, Chip. All right, I've got 3 folks here. All right. All those in favor of the motion as read, please signify by raising your hand and leaving it up until you know you've been counted. And Diane, do we know how to? All right, all those opposed, please raise your hand. Leave it up until you've been counted. All right, there were 242 ballots cast. 162 votes is necessary to achieve the two-thirds majority. There were 198 in favor and 44 opposed. The motion passes by the necessary two-thirds and a third of vote. Thank you. Moving on to Article 21. This is again a zoning bylaw amendment sponsored by the Planning Board. It does require a two-thirds majority vote. This is in regard to a temporary moratorium on medical marijuana treatment centers. And it's moved and seconded by the Planning Board that the town vote to approve Article 21 as printed in the warrant. The Planning Board did hold a public hearing on April 25th, 2013 and voted 5-0 to recommend Article 21 exactly as printed in your town meeting warrant. The Planning Board wish to introduce this article?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. This is an article that we had to put on because the state in its infinite wisdom has put the cart before the horse again and has voted to adopt a bylaw to allow medical marijuana to be allowed to be grown, yet we have no bylaw as to where to do it, how to administrate it, or anything else like this. Most of the cities and towns in Massachusetts are adopting a one-year moratorium, and we're just following Burlington and the rest of the towns to give us time to come up with some plans as to how to implement what the state has mandated the town allows from now on. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone who wishes to be heard with respect to Article 21? Yes, ma'am.
Yes, Mr. Moderator, my name is Anne Marie. I live at 39 Dahlia Drive. Excuse me. The Board of Health, we are in favor of the medical marijuana moratorium. The moratorium that will stop the dispensing site from being developed. It is not a moratorium that will stop people who need it from going to their physician, getting a card, and using a product and growing it in their homes if they have a hardship issue. It's a moratorium that will stop the building of a site that will dispense products. We are for the moratorium because, as any public health project needs at least a year to develop, when you have new rules and regulations that will be subject to possibly changing, it's important that we have the time to do so. It's a new law. It's in draft form, and as such, it will probably prompt regulations from several boards, and it would be wise for us to coordinate those efforts with other boards. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak to Article 21, medical marijuana moratorium? If not, we'll proceed to a vote. Remember, again, it requires a two-thirds majority vote. All those in favor of the motion as read, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay, there were some no votes, so it's not a unanimous vote. So if I could impose upon my tellers, once again, we'll have to do a hand count. And so all those in favor of the motion as read, please signify by raising your hand, leaving it up there until you know you can count it. All those opposed, please raise your hand and leave it up there so you've been counted. Okay, thank you. The votes for Article 21, there were 247 ballots cast. 165 votes are needed for two-thirds majority. There were 243 yes votes, 4 no votes. So the motion passes by more than the necessary two-thirds majority, and I do declare it a vote. Thank you very much. Moving on to Article 22, this is a zoning bylaw amendment on extensive recreation special permit granting authority. However, the general laws require under Chapter 48, Section 5, that the planning board hold a public hearing and issue a report before to town meeting before town meeting can act on a zoning bylaw amendment. And the planning board has not held that public hearing, so therefore the motion cannot be legally put before town meeting. So we'll be passing over Article 22, and Madam Clerk, please record no affirmative action was taken on Article 22. Likewise with Article 23, another proposed zoning bylaw amendment regarding extensive recreation and the definition of extensive recreation. The planning board did not hold the requisite public hearing. It does not have a report for you this evening. Therefore, we will be passing over Article 23, and no affirmative action shall be taken on Article 23. And that brings us to our next bylaw amendment. This is a general bylaw amendment, so it requires a majority vote. Sponsored by the Board of Selectmen and the Conservation Commission, a town bylaw amendment regarding wetlands protection. It's been moved and seconded by the Board of Selectmen that the town vote to approve Article 24 as printed in the warrant. And you'll see that the Board of Selectmen and the Conservation Commission both support Article 24. Is there anyone who wishes to be heard with regard to Article 24? Yes, sir.
Nicholas States House, 28 Birch Road. This article gives the Conservation Commission and the Board of Selectmen the ability to change rules and regulations. And I'm just wondering, how are these rules and regulations established right now? Is that done in town meeting? And is this taking the establishment of rules and regulations out of the town meeting and putting it just into the hands of the Board of Selectmen and Conservation Commission?
Okay, thank you, sir. Try to get an answer to your question or questions. Town Council.
Tom Harrington, Town Council, through you, Mr. Moderator, to the previous speaker. Right now, we don't have rules and regulations under the town's wetlands bylaw. This allows them to adopt regulations. A regulation can't go farther than the authority granted under the bylaw, but this change to the bylaw grants them the authority to regulate, and I think there's a good description about it at the bottom, but they can adopt rules and regulations that establish design specifications, performance standards, and other measures and safeguards, including setbacks.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Anna Mayer, 29 Juniper Road, Conservation Commission member. I'm here to speak to that article, and maybe that will clarify the previous question. This article will allow the commission to create the set of rules based on the bylaws. So it expands on the bylaws and puts all the detail and the nitty-gritty that would clutter the bylaw and put it into a separate set of regulations. Now, they're based on the bylaw, so it can't go beyond it. However, it does give more detail than the bylaw. So, and these regulations are still going to be approved through the Board of Selectmen first. So they'll be presented there and go through the board. And then, in addition to that, it will be presented in a public hearing in front of the Conservation Commission. So there's going to be a double set of review by the public before they are set into law. And the advantages of having a set of regulations is that these will be approved in a more fluid fashion. So if there are negative or objectionable aspects to any part of the regulations that have been passed, they are easily changed in that same process through the selectmen and the hearing, instead of waiting a year to change something negative through the public meeting, the larger public meeting. All the towns around Littleton have such a setup. They have a set of bylaws and a set of regulations. There's only the town of Air does not. Acton, Westford, Boxborough, Groton, and Harvard all have bylaws and regulations. So, in short, there's going to be a strong ability for us to enforce the bylaw backed up by DEP in cases of appeals. The regulations, as I said before, are more easily modified via public hearing rather than a town meeting. And it is similar to other boards in town which have this setup of a more fluid set of regulations that can be more easily modified. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Jerry Alfieri again. The only real concern I have with this is, once you allow a board to set regulations, can it start imposing costly restrictions on homeowners? I believe right now a homeowner could go through the Conservation Commission and get a permit to, on their own, clear some brush, build a deck in the buffer zone or whatever. Could the commission say, oh, we're going to set regulations. Here is a list of approved contractors thou shalt use. You cannot do the work yourself. You need to pick from this list. You need to use these engineers. And basically add a lot of cost, a lot of pain to people that right now can do an awful lot of stuff on their own. And what would protect the citizens from that kind of rulemaking?
Thank you. Board of Selectmen, Mr. Doucette.
Yeah, Ted Doucette, Mr. Moderator, through you to the previous speaker. Jerry, yes, Conservation Commissions, Boards of Health, Planning Boards can make regulations, and yes, some of them may be more costly. Some of the ones that you mentioned may be a little extreme, and I don't think they would get too far by saying there was a certain list. But there are restrictions that can be put on as far as expanding no-build zones and things like that. And the way this was developed was actually because there was a restriction. I believe there was a 25-foot no-build that was proposed, and there were additional fees. And the Conservation Commission came to the Board of Selectmen asking for the support, and really we couldn't come to a consensus on what it was, and that's why the Board of Selectmen were added in here as a checks and balances. I believe in many other towns it would be the Conservation Commission, according to the bylaw, can set the regulations with the proper notice and hearings and things like that. But the Board of Selectmen and the Conservation Commission agreed to have the regulations meet the approval of the Board of Selectmen as a check and balance.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak to Article 24? If not, we'll proceed to a vote. Remember, this is a general bylaw amendment. It requires a majority vote. All those in favor of the motion is read under Article 24, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? The ayes have it. The motion carries by a unanimous vote, and I so declare. Thank you very much. We'll move forward to Article 25. This is again a general bylaw amendment regarding the Director of Elder and Human Services. It's sponsored by the Board of Selectmen and the Council on Aging. Moved and seconded by the Board of Selectmen that the town vote to approve Article 25 as printed in the warrant. And you'll see the Board of Selectmen and Council on Aging both support Article 25, and there is a description of the article on page 32 of your handout. Is there anyone who wishes to speak with respect to Article 25? Board of Selectmen, Selectman Knox.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Before I defer to our town administrator and the Council on Aging, I just want to point out that this is much like work that was done years ago by the Town Government Study Committee, where they streamlined government. It's very important that when you read through this, that the town administrator is in charge of appointing, but it still requires, and I say, they'll also be subject to the approval of the Council on Aging. So the Council on Aging is not losing that authority, and it's just a streamline of the type of government that we have.
Thank you. Town Administrator? Mr. Moderator, the Council on Aging and the administration spent about 4 months together this winter in a team-building process where the results of that process were the adoption of a set of goals by the Council on Aging, where they seek to establish in Littleton best practices that are in place in the rest of the Commonwealth for providing elder services. And one of those provisions, which we are bringing forward tonight, would add the position of Director of Elder and Human Services to the list of department heads that's appointed by and responsible to the town administrator with the approval of the Board of Selectmen, but we've also established the requirement that that person also is subject to approval by the Council on Aging. We've had a series of measures in place over the last few years where the town administrator has been authorized to supervise the department head. This takes us to the next level of appointment, and we're committed to having a cooperative relationship between the council and the selectmen and the administration, and appreciate your support. Thank you. Is there anyone who wishes to speak to Article 25, the General Bylaw Amendment regarding the Director of Elder and Human Services? If not, we'll proceed to a vote. Bear in mind, again, it requires a simple majority. All those in favor of the motion as read, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. It passes by the necessary majority vote, and I do declare it to be a vote. Thank you very much. Okay, you may remember about 2.5 hours ago we voted Articles 26 and 27, which brings us to Article 28, drainage easement on Harvard Road. This does require a 2/3 majority, and the motion is moved and seconded by the Board of Selectmen that the town vote to approve Article 28 as printed in the warrant. And the Board of Selectmen does support Article 28. And is there a presentation by the Selectmen or some introduction? No? Okay. Explanation. There is an explanation on Article 28 in the bold print. This authorizes the approval of the drainage easement needed in connection with the roadway improvement project to reconstruct Harvard Road. Is there anyone who wishes to speak to this article? Mr. Del Priore, perhaps? Yes, sir.
Quick question. Is the landowner against who the easement's being applied in agreement with this, or is this being forcibly taken?
Town Administrator. Mr. Moderator, through you to the previous speaker, we have an agreement with the property owner. Anyone else wish to speak to Article 28, drainage easement on Harvard Road? This does require a 2/3 majority vote, and a unanimous vote would be very welcome at this point in the evening, not to influence anyone unduly. All those in favor of the motion as read under Article 28, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. The motion carries by a unanimous vote, which satisfies the 2/3 requirement. I so declare. Thank you very much. We'll now move forward to Article 29, sewer easements on Grist Mill Road and Surrey Road. This requires a simple majority vote. Moved and seconded that the town vote to approve Article 29 as printed in the warrant. And you'll see that the Board of Selectmen does not have a recommendation regarding Article 29. There is an explanation in the bold print as to what this article or the motion thereunder would do. Is there anyone who wishes to speak with respect to Article 29? Yes, sir.
Tom Coughlin, Coughlin Road. This is why you should vote no on Article 29. The developer wants to connect 7 lots on Grist Mill and Surrey Road to their private shared wastewater treatment plant to be built at 15 Grade Road for 40B development. The developer wants to put the private sewer lines above and under Grist Mill and Surrey Road. The developer wants an easement from us to do this. Allowing this would set a dangerous precedent for future building projects in Littleton, as other buildings and developers will want these non-emergency easements. Please protect yourselves from this gutting of the town bylaws. Please vote no on this article.
Yes, sir. Mr. Moderator.
Thank you. Henry Crystal, 18 Mill Lane. I'm here to speak about Article 29 also, and I like to think I'm here in defense of established neighborhoods. These could be new people that just moved to town in the past 6 months. They could be here people that have been in town for 50 years, like myself. But that's not a record, actually. So, but we have an opportunity here to do blasting to make this work. We're dealing with unbuildable lots. Unbuildable, apparently, which have been collecting in town for decades, are lots that didn't pass PER. Now we're going to use some technology and we're going to blast away and submit these, force these things into becoming home lots. Now, I don't like this for the people on Surrey Road. I don't like it in my backyard either. I don't know why any of us should live in fear of blasting damage. It's very difficult to get compensation for blasting damage. Marblehead, in February this year, 27 people in Marblehead sued the town for blasting damage to their property when the school was built. But the town finally told them, well, we're sorry, kids, you're on your own. And this is the way it goes with blasting damage. Unless you can prove that before the blasting was done, that you had no damage, which means you need documentation and photographs and a real track of proof. And then you can prove it didn't happen because of an earthquake or an airplane that went overhead. Nobody's going to pay you. So my issue with Article 29 is that I think it's going to open the risk way beyond Surrey Road. And lots of lots in town that are rocky that you can't build on, they could suddenly become developers' playgrounds. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Jen Staff, 40 Bulkley Road. I want to start by asking the folks in this room right now, what's this question? What is in this for the town? What benefit do we see from allowing this article to pass? I personally see no upside, none, zero, no good reason why this article should pass. The only benefits in this deal fall squarely on Omni's side of the equation. In a nutshell, this article asks the town to give Omni permission to tie 7 housing lots in the Alpadior development into the septic system they're going to build for the 40B apartments that are adjacent. Bear in mind, as I understand it, they currently own only 1 of those lots. So they're going to purchase 6 and then develop them. And they require our permission because they need easements under town roads to effect the tie-in. The Planning Board and Zoning Board of Appeals have already approved this plan. And the only reason this is even a question at town meeting is because we have to say they can go under our town roads. Town law requires this. And if it weren't for that, if this proposal didn't need this easement and our approval, then the ZBA and the Planning Committee's decisions to approve this plan would have been the final word, and this would already be in process. Please don't let the argument that a stringent permitting process sway you. As if we as a town did try to stop future proposals such as this through permitting, developers will be able to say, well, you let Omni do it. We will have set a precedent, and the developer will threaten legal action, and the various town boards will, well, voting no on this article will not stop us from having constructive and thoughtful discussions about this issue in the future. In fact, voting no is the only way we will be able to have exactly those conversations and review each proposal on its individual merits.
This is the only thing left for us as a town to do, to tell Omni that they do not decide what happens in Littleton. We do. Stand up and be counted. Vote no.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
My name is Patrick Joyce. I live at 165 Tehadawon Road. I'm on the Board of Appeals in the town of Littleton, and it was very, very painful to sit through negotiations for the 40B project and have Omni jam the thing down our throats. Littleton did not have 10% low rent housing, and they forced us this project on us, and it was hurtful, painful. The recession is over. Just ask Joe Knox. Real estate is booming, and it's booming in Littleton. It's a desirable place to live. And these developers will be coming in with their heavy equipment to ruin our neighborhoods just to put up houses. As it is now, they're in there and they're trying every angle to get approval to build houses in Littleton, even on declared lots that are wet. Littleton is a special place. It's not Acton, it's not Concord, it's Littleton. I urge you to vote no on this project.
Okay. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Jared Elfiori again. The trade-off is simple. The town gets what, about $440,000, I think, over a few years if we let this go through between back taxes and the easement fees. The town also gets 7 more trophy houses. And that $440,000 and the property taxes from those homes isn't even going to come close to the additional costs to support those homes, not even putting the kids through school. As I understand it, if the town does not support this and votes it down, which I hope we do, the town gets title to the land, it's already in tax title, you can turn some of it into a park, some of it's got access to Farm Pond. We just spent $400 and something thousand to preserve 7 acres. Here we get the 7 acres for about the same thing, and we take 7 houses out of the inventory forever. And as far as booming real estate, maybe that's why they want to blast.
Yes, sir.
Mark Levine, 66 Hartwell Avenue. I'm the other Mark Levine on Hartwell Avenue, by the way. We're getting a good deal here, $250,000. Wow, what a great deal. It's not really. Omni's now going to get 7, what weren't buildable, now buildable lots. It's going to cost them $35,000 a year, roughly. 250 divided by 7. These lots have a value of over $1 million if they work. So now we build 3-bedroom houses on the lots. They'll sell for $500,000 each. 6, 7. Yeah. But that's not even including the cost or that piece of property that they now own. So now Omni's going to get additional value of $4.5 million. You know, this is a deal that I'd take any day of the week if I was Omni. What it's going to cost us? Well, each house has 2 children. 7 houses, that's 14 kids. It costs $12,500 a year to educate for a total of $175,000 per year. Offset by real estate taxes we'll get of roughly $56,000 per year for a net cost of taxpayers of $119,000. In less than 3 years, the burden of these 7 houses will be ours 100%. We'll be paying more and more as it goes along. So let's recap. 3 years, Omni ends up with $4.5 million. We end up with additional taxes. I just urge you to stop the bleeding now. Omni's done enough damage. Vote no tonight.
There's a certain sameness to the comments coming to the microphone, so I'll take the three gentlemen that have been waiting in line, but then we're going to take a vote.
Okay, Mr. Moderator, I'll be very brief. First, I'd
Thank
like
you.
permission to use one of the microphones at the front of the room so I can address my fellow taxpayers eye to eye instead of the backs of their heads, but I'll keep it to 30 seconds of prepared comment.
I see nothing wrong with the microphone you got there.
All right, well then I'll work this room in the round.
I hear nothing wrong.
Again, Mark Skilly, Surrey Road. I'll be very brief. You've heard lots of technical reasons why we should vote no on Article 29. There's another reason that you should also vote no on Article 29. I'd like you to imagine the following scenario. You own your house in Littleton for the last 25 or 30 years, as I have, and you pay your taxes every quarter. And you decide that you want to put a swimming pool in your backyard. But to do that, you're going to have to dig up your septic tank. So you come up with the following scenario. I'm going to stop paying my taxes, and I'm only going to pay you if you let me hook into a neighbor's septic tank that's a half a mile down the road. Oh, and here's a letter that says they're going to let me do it. And by the way, I need to do some blasting as well because, I want to make this thing really nice and pretty. Can you imagine if you made your tax payment contingent on that sort of scenario? These people have owned these lots for more than 10 years. They've never paid a dime to the town of Littleton in taxes, and now they're telling us they will pay us the taxes that we are due if we let them blast this mountain, if we let them dig up our roads, if we let them connect to a sewer system that the town didn't ask for in the first place. I urge you, vote no.
Thank you, sir. Yes.
My name is Scott Brown, 75 Gristmill Road. I have a unique perspective. My lot is connected to 4 of the potential blast sites. So actually, as you can imagine, it's not thrilling for me. I'm all for growth. We've got 200 units. We've got another 20 houses by a Concord-based developer, by the way. And, enough's enough.
All right. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Mike Stroesberg, 77 Gristmill. On the map right there, I'm another one of those direct abutters. I'm also an engineer, and I formerly worked in noise and vibration control, dealing with blasting and testing of blasting, say, 500 to 1,000 feet from occupied residences. My residents, they haven't said where they might blast there, is probably at most 200 feet from where they want to blast, which I can tell you is a really bad idea, and you don't want that 200 feet from your house. And they're not even good building lots. I've walked those lots. There's a lot of lead right at the surface. No matter what they do on those lots, it's going to be a problem. So, I'd just like everybody to think about whether it's really a good idea for anybody but Omni. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, last comment, sir, if you can be brief.
Yeah, I'll be brief. Jerry Portante, Planning Board. I just want to point out that this is part of the host community agreement that was pitched to us when we mitigated with Omni. This isn't just coming out of the blue. So it's tied to the mitigation funds that we agreed to settle in lieu of going to litigation. That's what this is from. So just take that into account when you make your vote.
Okay, thank you. All right, I think we are ready for a vote. We'll try this on a voice vote. It does require a simple majority vote. Town Council, is that correct? Majority vote? Town Council was informed me it requires a majority vote, so we'll try the voice vote and go from there. All those in favor of the motion under Article 29 as read, please signify by saying aye. Okay, those opposed? No! Well, the chair is not in doubt on that particular vote. The note have it, the motion fails, and I so declare. Thank you very much. We will now move to Article 30, which, if you've been playing along at home or following your program, this is the last article because we've already dealt with 31. This is a borrowing article. It requires a 2/3 vote and the wonderful ballot and checklist situation that we all enjoyed earlier this evening. So the motion is moved and seconded by the Board of Health that the town vote to approve Article 30 as printed in the warrant. The Board of Health supports Article 30. Finance Committee, Board of Selectmen met earlier this evening, and I understand that both boards also support Article 30, the Community Septic System Repair Loan Program. All right, there is a presentation by the Board of Health. Yes, sir, Mr. Yap.
Why don't you do it? We don't want to be here any longer than we have to. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Peter Yap from the Board of Health. Just this is a pretty brief. I know it's getting late. Everybody wants to get out of here, including me. So I'm going to try to do this pretty quick. It's the oh, sorry. The other word. I'll be out the door. I'll be out. Okay, this is the Community Septic Loan Program. It's kind of a rehash of something that we've had in the past. It was before my time, but some people that may have utilized it may want to get up and talk to it. It's not a new program. A lot of the towns around here actually participate in it. Other towns don't. So it's basically, I'll go through there pretty quickly. It's for failed systems. It's a state loan program at zero interest. Basically, it's for the people that can't or don't have the money to repair the septic systems, and they can go to this program, and we set a rate. And as this goes on, this will show you that. The Board of Health does the decisions on who should get it based on certain criteria that we set up. It's out of the Water Pollution Abatement Trust. That's supposedly the people that are lending the money. Benefits are paid off, benefits I should say, off over time on an additional line on your tax bill, so they're going to pay it back with their tax bill. The program does not raise taxes. This is no skin off our back. We get the money comes in as required. The first year is $200,000. The next year is $300,000, and then I think the program recycles again. Okay, now hit it again. The community has to express an interest in participating. Town meeting approval is required because it's a borrowing. We're still borrowing, even though we are not obligated to pay that amount. It's just sitting in like a bank, and we take out from that account as we need it. They don't give us $200,000 the first year. They set it aside. The Board of Health will develop a management plan. The last time they targeted Long Lake and Manawanakie. Earlier programs, I should say, other programs that they had was the inspection program. I think Jerry had asked about it, and we decided not to take that route. It required inspections of all your systems, say in the Long Lake area. So we haven't developed where exactly we were going to target, but it would probably be around the lake area where there's still older septic systems, actually cesspools. The board has suggested the town borrow up to $300,000. It's $200,000 the first year and $100,000 the next. We may not even use it, but they say to do it now, borrow up to the $300,000, so next year we don't have to do this at town meeting again for another $100,000. 2.5% loan can be used to offset administration. Obviously, somebody's going to have to monitor this, send it out with their tax bills. There's going to have to put liens on the property. It gets a little complicated, but nothing we couldn't handle, I believe. repayment of the loan starts in the second year. And again, if, for instance, you only have one person that had a very expensive system, and we allow them to, based on the cost of the septic system repair and everything, say $50,000, they would start paying that back through us to the second year. So if they were paying like $2,000 a year, we'd be paying back to the state $2,000 a year. So we don't hold any money. The requirements is the system has to be failed. The homeowner must be good with a good tax rating of the town, obviously. Primary residence, second homes, condominiums are all eligible, as well as tie-ins to existing sewer line. And that's kind of an interesting thing. If you've got an existing sewer line you can tie in, apparently we would probably not have one for a while. And of course, business properties or new homes are not eligible for it. It's got to be, it's really for people that systems have failed, they can't get the money through the normal channels. This gives them an opportunity to get low interest loans through the town and get their system fixed. Go ahead, Keith. You just did it? Oh, there you go. So again, the cost of loans repaid to the community over time. The people have up to 20 years. As it says here, usually it's 10 to 15 years. It's better than it really would be on the cost of the system. And they suggest 2 to 5% interest to the community. Last time, I think it was 5%. Obviously, if you could get money cheaper back probably 5 to 10 years ago when they had this other program, they were gone to the bank. There's no penalty for early payoff, and the betterment secures additional charges on real estate. That's it. So, consequently, it seems like a pretty good program. If it's voted on tonight, then the board will set up a local management plan. We'll target an area, set up criteria. We'll be working with the financial people and the town of Bonnie, and try to come up with what it's going to cost to administer this program, and that will be where we develop what percentage we're going to pay. I don't know if anybody has any questions on it.
All right, well, let's see. Is there anyone who has any questions or wishes to speak to Article 30? Please come to the... Is that really Jerry?
Just one quick question. Is this management plan going to include any kind of like mandatory inspections of all?
No, that's what I said before, Jerry. I remember you had asked that question. There is one, well, what do I want to call it here? It's a way of doing it, but they want inspections on it. It's very intense, and I don't know who would pay for all the inspections. Say you're targeting a long lake. Would you have to go around and inspect every system? It really was not what we needed. It's that type of thing is mainly for protecting a water supply. If you had a water supply, then that's where you wanted to really protect it. Then you do the testing type. We're doing the local management.
Yes, sir.
Steve Sussman, 32 Lake Warren Drive. The question regarding the wording, the article talks about appropriating $300,000, yet you're talking about borrowing. Is borrowing underlie the appropriation?
Again, we don't get that whole 300. That does not come to us. They hold it. We're allowed to borrow against 200 in a pot, 200,000 in the first year, and 100 on the second. So we're go ahead.
Mr. Moderator, through this speaker to that speaker. The word appropriate also appears in the article with the word borrow. So we are appropriating and borrowing. We are in fact borrowing the money. It's not to raise and appropriate, and we're borrowing against the authority under the DEP program. So it's not a local appropriation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Keith.
Anyone else who wishes to speak to Article 30, the Community Septic System Repair Loan Program? If not, we can proceed to a vote. Please keep in mind, because we are borrowing these funds, it requires a 2/3 majority vote. And also, remember, our bylaws require use of the ballot and checklist unless we do get a unanimous vote. And you did authorize me earlier tonight to declare a unanimous vote to be a 2/3 vote for the purposes of satisfying bond counsel. With that in mind, all those in favor of the motion as read, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? The ayes have it. Passes by a unanimous vote. And I do declare we will need one resident to come forward to cast a specimen ballot to make the vote official. While we're doing that, before we dissolve the meeting, I'd like to thank the town administrator, assistant town administrator, town clerk, the board of selectmen and finance committee for their assistance in preparing for this town meeting. Our thanks also to the school department for their generous use of the gymnasium. I'd also like to thank Littleton Community Television, Mark Torrey, and Nancy Klingberg from the IT department. And we're doing a little paperwork in connection to borrowings here. In a moment, I'll entertain a motion to dissolve this annual town meeting. So moved. Second. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Town meeting is dissolved. Thank you very much.